A couple of people asked this next question about what you'd say to President-elect Biden in this moment. So I'll ask the question in a few different ways. If you were advising Biden, who in history would you tell him to study to think about effective leadership in a moment like this? And then Drew asks, what would you recommend that he do and say vis-a-vis the events of January 6th? So I don't know, Jill, if you want to take that. I mean, what sort of advice from the history books would you give to Joe Biden?
I think Biden's been doing a good job. Like, I think even in the events of the last week, he's said good things. I wish I was writing his inaugural address. Like, I want that assigned. It's an important address, and right, like I volunteer. Um, I think that what I want him to do is what he wants to do, which is to get to work. I think it's a really tricky situation entering into the office at a moment when the House could not but impeach. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't let the president invade the Capitol building and not attempt to remove him from office. So it's a complicated moment, and in 1,000 different ways. I think this is the obvious thing, but it's a combination of FDR and Lincoln that he needs to look to. FDR for getting things done, working it with great determination and urgency to work quickly, because quick work is important here. And Lincoln for the eloquence of trying to speak to the moment as best possible, which is not Biden's strength. I guess the only other thing that I would suggest, which I don't know that I anticipate, partly because of the pandemic and partly because of the reality of our political situation. I wish that Biden could go on a listening tour to counties that voted overwhelmingly for Trump. And I think the nation needs that, and I think that's an important thing to do, and would alleviate some of the kind of conspiratorial suspiciousness with which people who didn't vote for him view him.
I hate to say
Jelani,
it.
what are your thoughts?
I think that's a great idea in theory, but I'm just being quite honest. I don't know that it's safe for him to do something like that. I really would be worried about his safety if he were kind of going to these counties that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And that in itself, I think, is damning. And I agree with everything Jill said. I'll add one other president there for one particular reason, which is Ulysses S. Grant, who took power after another impeached president, albeit one of his own party. Well, not his own party. Johnson wasn't a Republican, but had served under a Republican president. And he had inherited the turmoil that came with having a figure who was recalcitrant and far too sympathetic to the causes of white nationalists of their day. And he had to prosecute the disruption of the Ku Klux Klan, recognizing that they represented a threat to the integrity of the United States. And anytime that we're talking about not being able to trust the Capitol Police because you don't know where their allegiances lie, you're in a situation that would require the historical precedent of Grant moving forward to break the back of the Klan in the 1870s.